In November of 2018, Minecraft released a new beta for Bedrock that included the Barrel of Fish, the Sea Lantern, and the Lava Cauldron. Interestingly enough, this Lava Cauldron, 3 years later, would make its way into the Java Edition and the Caves and Cliffs update, where it is now combined with pointed dripstone to make one of Minecraft's most useful farms and makes infinitely renewable lava possible. It also just looks pretty darn cool, and I figured with this video I would talk about weird features like that you might not have known started on Bedrock a long time before they came to Java. In some cases they were changed and refined and renewed, like the Lava Cauldron, but in some cases a lot of features you might know as Java features started out on the Bedrock Edition, and so I combed through the last 7 years of Java updates to let you know which of those features started there, and so we can talk about the future of integrating the games together. But let's start with a feature that is now available in all editions of the game, but every time I see it I still think it's a weird Pocket Edition feature, because you can shear a Snow Golem's pumpkin to reveal the face underneath it. This is something that was initially a little bit of an Easter egg for Pocket Edition players, but it soon made its way into Java Edition 1.9, and from there into the Console Edition, and now it's just one of those normal things you can do with Snow Golems. Similarly, the squid used to just kind of exist in the water. Truly one of Minecraft's most boring mobs. Even if you punched it, it would just kind of move around a little bit. It didn't like being punched, but it couldn't do much about it. But with 1.13, the Java Edition borrowed a feature from Bedrock Edition, which is the Squid Shooting Ink when attacked. I say borrowed, in reality it's called a parity change, because all of these changes were added to Java under the idea of making Java better in the same way certain Java features make their way to Bedrock. In the same vein of mobs and AI, we have the fact that villagers emitting green particles when joining a village, claiming a bed or profession, is a really useful visual cue for something that is otherwise kind of opaque, something you wouldn't know about unless you read the wiki and kept an eye on your villagers day and night, so they decided to add it to the Java Edition in 1.16.2. Although that first started on Bedrock in 1.14, a lot of 1.14 features came to Java and Bedrock at the same time, but if you look at the old Java Edition trading menu and the old Bedrock Edition trading menu, you can see that they actually heavily based the new trading UI that the villagers have on the old Bedrock Edition trading menu, which I think was really ugly but was very functional. And I think the best way to use two development teams working on two different games, which truly is what Minecraft is when we talk about Bedrock and Java, is when you take the best bits of both and you combine them together, like they did with parts of Village and Pillage. Did you know also the drop rates of copper ingots from Drowned went up on the Java Edition to match the Bedrock Edition, although the drop rates of tridents are still slightly different. Also, if you look at how Enderman punch on the Java Edition, that started on Bedrock, and so isn't that another weird little change? There's actually a lot of these very minor things that you might not know about even as a Bedrock player. Let's go through them very quickly. They changed the Never Warp block texture on Java Edition 1.16 to match the Bedrock one. They changed the top texture for Purpur Pillars in the same update. They changed the top texture of Crimson and Warp stems, as well as renaming this block right here. In fact, this block is one of those really interesting examples of how do you even work out how to add parity to Minecraft, because previously it was called the grass path on Java and the dirt path on Bedrock. Which one is objectively correct? I mean, if both developers choose different sets of names, then how can you really argue one is right over the other? And that's why there actually is a whole team at Mojang, which is partially dedicated to making sure there is a vanilla game with a consistent vision, and they decided clearly that the best name for this block would be the dirt path and not the grass path, which, again, endlessly interesting how you even begin to make that decision. Speaking of decisions that had to be made, the next few ones are kind of technical, but visibility culling to only render what's in view and not in a radius around the player is something they added in Java Edition 1.8 but started on the Pocket Edition. The reason being, Pocket Edition generally runs on phones and tablets, which have much less power, and so lots of rendering improvements, such as only rendering things that you're directly looking at, which is why when you turn around it has to re-render in, only rendering things you can see rather than the underground, or the simulation distance even. All of these performance improvements were necessity for a Minecraft that runs on lower power devices, and then the Java Edition gets to use them to hopefully help out people with lower end devices. However, lower end devices isn't something that is as sexy as the Lava Cauldron, so let's talk about weird gameplay mechanics that started there. The auto jump option is one of Minecraft Java's most controversial picks, in my opinion, because when they added auto jump to Java, they made it a default option, even when playing with keyboard, which is something a lot of people found to be very questionable. In fact, the only real benefit being that when you can go upstairs faster with auto jump than without for some reason. And there is also another weird gameplay mechanic, which is the Mineshafts were infinitely better when added to the Bedrock Edition. You might be saying, whoa here, Toycat, did you just say Bedrock has something better than Java? I mean, there's a lot of things Java has better than Bedrock, like going on top of the Nether, first of all, but second of all, the way they added in Mineshafts to Bedrock was so interesting because they had a separate Mesa mineshaft for when it happened to spawn there, where it could spawn much higher above the ground, and when it did spawn above the ground, whether in the Mesa biome or because of something else, it tried to spawn without spider spawners and to have more rails on the surface. This is something Java Edition didn't add until 1.10, the Frostburn update, which, let's be honest, is a kind of forgotten about update, but it did make some pretty decent changes to the mineshaft. Speaking of going to a mineshaft, if you were to take a horse to a mineshaft before Java Edition 1.14, do you know how many colors of horse armor you could equip it with? Well, there's the iron, and there's the gold, which is inexplicably better than iron for some reason, but only in this one area, and then there is the diamond horse armor, whereas the Bedrock Edition, and later the Console Edition, had a, it's like 11.7 million colors of it. How was this disparity made possible? Because when horses came to Bedrock, they decided to add leather horse armor to the game. This is the only craftable horse armor, and also it's dyeable, not just the 16 colors, but any mixture of the 16 colors 6 times. I don't even know what the combination is. I'll put it on screen. It's a big number. It's more than you need. You know, I need like 4 colors to my horses. I don't need this many. But anyway, this was a change that came from the Bedrock Edition, which I think is interesting because this next set of changes all seem very, I guess, basic or new player oriented. They're things that you would do much easier, whereas the Java Edition exclusives are all about things that, like, yeah, when you're 16,000 days into a world and you need to quasi-connect the redstone comparators to your tick hop counter above your nether in the iron golem farm, and it's like, whoa, take a few steps back there. Whereas the Bedrock Edition has a lot of features that you can enjoy basically day one. I mean, the Composter Recipe was added and it used wooden slabs instead of planks and fences. It was just an objective win, which is why they added it to the Java Edition. Beetroot soup and beetroot seeds were a Bedrock exclusive for so long because when they added crops to the game, being potatoes and carrots, of course, they decided, let's just add beetroot too, and so they added it to Java Edition in 1.9 a long time afterwards. The observer block is one that I think was just a logical way to make redstone easier, rather than having the block update detector bud switches, as they were called, being these really complex things that I could never get my head around. It's just a block that exists by itself. It's made Minecraft redstone more accessible for everyone, and in the same way, the light block makes map making more accessible for people, because instead of having to just guess how lighting works or do all these weird techniques that people had to do before, you just fill it with some light blocks and now you can see places when you want to see those places. In fact, the recipe book, which many Java Edition players could not live without, only came in 1.12 and is initially a Pocket Edition kind of feature. Same with status effects being always visible on the right hand side of the HUD and not just in your inventory. Previously on the Java Edition, if you wanted to see if you had slowness on you or if you still had water breathing when you're in water, you had to quickly press E, or whatever your inventory button is. You had to look over there and then get back into the game. It's a weird little change that just makes the game so much more playable because it was designed for a different platform, and I think that's a really great example of how you can use a different version to make your version better. In the same way, the Bedrock Edition sometimes tends towards the easier or lazier, or I don't want to call it side of the game, but you know, the less involved it may be, and you can see that in how maps are sold, etc, etc, etc. I feel like they can benefit from having Java there to be like, no, actually, here's this really cool late game thing that people would really love, like the Deep Dark. Would the Deep Dark ever come to a Bedrock Minecraft if there wasn't a Java 2? I'm not sure, but I'm glad we don't have to be suspicious about it. And so the final interesting thing here that I want to mention is that in 1.17, they updated the credits on the Java Edition to match the Bedrock Edition, because it previously used to be that the Bedrock credits would reference the Java developers. I mean, how could you not mention even people that mostly work on Java, like Jeb, whereas the Java Edition did not mention the Bedrock developers, which was kind of a bummer, and so they fixed it. And again, this is an interesting case of like more integration between the two teams, because from the outside in, is Minecraft 2 games or 1 game? I mean, it's developed by 2 different sets of people, and most of them live on different sides of the world. They're made in different programming languages for different platforms, and they have different player bases, if we're being honest, of different age and location and everything like that requirements. One of them even has a whole microtransaction system and minecoins in there, whereas one of them is relatively pure and has existed for a different amount of time. So like when you see these 2 games side by side, are they really the same Minecraft? And to me though, I think that yeah, if you're going to both label them Minecraft, it's going to be made by the same studio, supported by the same funds, and having updates at the same time. It would be very weird not to list those Bedrock developers, and I'm glad they made that change. I mean, not including them, or again, not including someone like Jeb, just because he mostly works on the Java Edition, would be the same as like not including someone who worked on the game since its very inception, like someone on the same level as like a founder. I mean, I'm sure they'd never remove someone's name for the game for, you know, like internal political reasons. I'm sure that that's not what credits are. Credits are just a list of who worked on the game, and that's why they should have everyone on there. But you know what, to move on and to bring you to why I decided to make this video, I wanted to talk about Bedrock Edition features that I think could make Java significantly better. I think that there is a real room for adding more and more of these changes all of the time. I think that, like I've said before, here are some Java features that would make Bedrock better, but here are some Bedrock features that I think should be coming to Java as well. I guess I wanted to kind of answer the question of like, well, when Java and Bedrock are different, which one should take priority? Here are the things that I think are just better. First of all, we have placing a block in front of the player. If you want to, you know, like bridge out in front of yourself, you don't have to do this weird crouching technique. And I'll admit, it's really cool watching like MLG level Minecraft players do the crouch hops and do the weird PvP stuff. It's pretty cool that on Java they developed that technique, but it's just far more fun to be able to place in front of yourself. And if you get really good with that, you can do some weird bridging up stuff. It's really intense. Speaking of intense, variations in the intensity of rain and snowfall. Java Edition is only on the medium level of rain all the time. It'd be cool if they had light snow and heavy snow. Light rain and heavy rain would make things better. Also, leaves become white when it snows in the Bedrock Edition of the game. It's a simple change, but it really adds to the atmosphere in a way that seems like you'd add it. Display coordinates world option. I really do not like having to pull up the F3 menu if I want to see my coordinates. It feels like, people get very upset when I use the C word, but it feels like cheating to me. It feels like this is not intended for me. There is so much going on here. I don't, you know, that here is a Minecraft meme that represents my feelings. Like I am looking at the Tony Stark helmet and I don't know what's happening. Also, strongholds being more likely to spawn under villages. I think that anything that helps you locate structures that are otherwise purely random, you know, knowledge that can make random things that don't need to be random less random, that's a big win in my opinion. Also, randomly rotated block textures. I think that for grass, this does a really good job of you know, making things look better. Same with sand, I would say. Like Bedrock looks a little bit less uniform, which it shouldn't do because grass is kind of natural. I think that at least naturally generated grass, sand, clay, netherrack, etc. should be randomly rotated. I would actually love, though, if the Java Edition non-rotation would come when you place the block. I don't know if that's even possible, but look at my netherrack cube on the Bedrock Edition, and you can see, like, ooh, yeah, that's kind of weird, actually. So there's an example where you can take from both. Cauldrons holding potions in them. Why not, right? Dyeing being done in the cauldron instead of the crafting table. Armor stands being able to dab. Okay, maybe not that. Speaking of things I'm not sure they should have, the big salmon is something that makes Minecraft so much better. The fact that it drops bones instead of bone meal. There is so many great things to say about this size salmon, but I think that we as Bedrock players need to hold strong. Java Edition cannot take our salmon until we get going on the roof of the Nether. I think that's the only fair trade to make right here. You know, everyone stand up together and we can make the change we need to see in the world. But no, more seriously, I hope you'll enjoy this video where we went through 22 different features that started on the Bedrock Edition. If you are a Java player, thank you first of all for watching my videos. I know they get confusing sometimes, but also let me know if you knew that these were Bedrock Edition features first, or if you just assumed that they were natural improvements to Minecraft, because if not, maybe it's a reminder that like all these improvements come from somewhere, and at the very least, even if you hate Bedrock for everything else, it's a good source of features to drag into the one-size salmon version of Minecraft. Thank you for watching, I hope you'll enjoy it, because I'll see you next time. Bye!